G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to answer the really popular question of whether cracking your knuckles is bad for you and whether it leads to arthritis down the track. Then following on from that, I want to use my clinical experience as a physio and sort of drawing from what I'm finding clinically about what the actual cause of cracking your knuckles is. And then we're going to do a very simple exercise with a ball that will hopefully show you how to fix that problem, or at least get you to the point where you don't feel like you need to crack your knuckles anymore. And what I want you to do in the comments down below is let me know what you think that underlying hidden root cause of cracking your knuckles might actually be. I'm very interested to understand or to learn what you guys are thinking and whether anyone's sort of figured this out before or whether you've heard this before, because I think the general explanation for why you have to crack your knuckles, at least for me personally, feels incorrect. It doesn't feel like it explains enough. And I think I'm finding something clinically that might help explain or at least for me, does help explain why we have the tendency to need to crack those knuckles in the first place. So before we get into that, obviously, if you do want to enjoy this content, please consider leaving a like rating down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow, obviously, helps these videos get out to more people. And if you genuinely find this information either insightful or helpful, then please consider leaving a super thanks donation down below as well. It just helps the channel keep going. It helps me sort of continue to be able to make these kinds of videos and hopefully provide some help to those that need it. So with that being said, I think the best place to start with this is actually what's happening when you crack your knuckles. Now, a lot of people can sort of, or have been led to believe that cracking your knuckles, that you are breaking something or destroying something or doing some damage to the joint. And the short answer to this question is no. You aren't doing damage to your tissue or your joints by cracking your knuckles. And there's a little bit of research out there that shows that it doesn't necessarily make you more likely to develop arthritis down the track. And the reason for that's quite simple. So what's actually happening when we hear a crack, it's what's called a cavitation, which is essentially a deflation or a popping of a gas bubble. And the reason why it feels so good to do is because as that gas bubble builds up, it increases the pressure in the joint. So when you've got some discomfort or some tightness or some restriction, and you crack it and it relieves some of that pressure, then you get some symptomatic relief from doing that. But the important thing to understand here is when you're cracking your knuckles, you aren't solving the reason why you need to crack your knuckles. You're just treating or resolving a symptom that's developed because of something else. So unless we're taking a step back to try and understand why this is happening in the first place, then you'll have to keep cracking your knuckles indefinitely. And what I tend to see clinically, there tends to be a continuum where we generally start out when things are functioning really well. We don't have the need or the feeling or the impetus to crack our knuckles. Then as this dysfunction continues, then we start to build up that pressure and we start to feel the need to having to crack those knuckles. And then if we keep going, if nothing sort of abates and we sort of go on the same trajectory that's created that dysfunction, then we actually see some people get to a point where they feel like they need to crack their knuckles, but they can't because it's progressed to a point now where things have stiffened up a little bit, the tissue's a little bit more restricted, and we can't sort of gap or open up that joint enough, which is what's happening when we crack our knuckles, to release that gas bubble, that pressure that's built up. So when we start to use an exercise like this, which we'll get to towards the end of the video, what we'll actually find is that when we start to free things up, you might find that you go from someone who can't crack your knuckles to someone who can crack your knuckles. And as we keep going back down the other side of that, you then eventually graduate to someone who doesn't need to crack their knuckles anymore because they've hopefully solved the underlying problem there. So to tick that question off, it isn't necessarily a bad thing to crack your knuckles. It doesn't necessarily cause you damage. But if the reason for why you need to crack your knuckles is left unabated and untreated, then that may potentially contribute to arthritis down the track. But cracking your knuckles specifically isn't necessarily the thing that's going to get you there. So moving on to the next point, I guess, why we need to crack our knuckles in the first place. And again, I haven't seen any research on this. I haven't necessarily heard a lot of whispers in the medical community as to people thinking about this at all. But the reason why it tends to happen based on what I'm finding clinically, and I've been really interested in this topic for a while, I'm actually finding, believe it or not, that there is a strong connection between having to crack your knuckles and neck dysfunction. Now, if you've been following this channel, you'll know that we're finding some strong links between neck dysfunction and RSI, tennis elbow, all these sorts of things, and it's the same basic concept. And that basic concept is that the specific segments of your neck house nerves and other sort of, I guess, the nerve roots and the dermatomes and the myotomes, the neural connections that sort of permeate through our body. The base of your neck and the top of your upper back has the neural connections to your hands and fingers, whether that's your sensation, whether that's your musculature, whatever it may be, there's a connection between your hands and fingers and the base of your neck, the top of your upper back. We know that that's not necessarily groundbreaking information. But what I'm finding is that if you have some subtle neck dysfunction, and we're not talking about necessarily a disc bulge or arthritis or wear and tear or a nerve root issue or anything like that, you just have some restrictions in those areas, and that can be most commonly joint restrictions, and then on top of that some muscular restrictions as well, muscular tightness. Then it can tend to inhibit the tissue that it associates with. So what we tend to see basically is that if you have some subtle neck dysfunction, it can inhibit the function and the normal order of the tissue in your hands and fingers, then leave it open for some pressure and some abnormal loading to occur, which can create a buildup of that sort of gas bubble in your hands and fingers. And then what I tend to find clinically is that by mobilizing the neck and freeing up the neck, we can actually start taking away the need to crack those knuckles. So the experience that I've had, because it's one of those things that you sort of have to test for over a period of time, is if you're someone who routinely cracks your knuckles every single morning without fail, you might find that as we go through this exercise, you might start to wake up and feel like you don't need to crack your knuckles again. You don't need to having to keep doing that if you're ticking the boxes that we're about to go through. And I want to get you to keep an eye on that and let me know in the comments down below, because I'm finding this with a lot of patients that by mobilizing the neck, freeing up those tissue restrictions at the levels, the appropriate levels that respond and connect to your hands and fingers, then we're seeing some really positive changes in the need to crack those knuckles. It just doesn't keep coming back. You don't have to keep doing it. And to piggyback off the previous point that I made about arthritis and things like that, in terms of what causes arthritis, in my personal experience as a physio, and I can't speak for other people at the moment, and I don't want this to be gospel at the moment, but it's just an account of what I'm finding clinically. It seems that areas that become arthritic don't become arthritic through overuse, because the tissues are designed to be used, they're designed to be consistently in motion, they're designed to carry us through our day-to-day life. So if you're someone who's developing arthritic fingers, it's less likely in my experience that it's come from using your fingers because that's what they're designed for, but it's more likely that there's a hidden handbrake that's been going on behind the scenes that subtly changed the way or the level of function that you have to work with, that then becomes a problem over time. And that connection is essentially the neck. So I guess the main point I want to make with this is cracking your knuckles isn't necessarily the thing that's going to lead to arthritis in your hands and fingers. But if your neck is dysfunctional, then that's potentially going to set you up or open the door for some arthritis down the track by inhibiting the normal function that you deserve to have in those hands and fingers. So again, please, again, you don't have to take my word for this. We can test it out yourself. You can prove this to yourself, but it's just an account of what I'm finding clinically, and hopefully down the track, when we start to research this sort of stuff a little bit more, we might find that that's an area that we can look at that may potentially sort of really help us regain a lot more control over things that we've often thought we don't have control over because we assume it's based on age and bad luck and all this sort of stuff. So what I want to get you to do, basically the exercise that I want to go through, and again, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while now, you will have seen this before. We use this a lot. It's such a versatile exercise for so many different things. What we want to get you to do basically is we want to get you to take the ball, and the ball to press into the bone at the base of your neck, or at least that's the starting point. So the ball goes into the base of your neck. I want you to let it roll off to the side a little bit onto the column of muscle underneath that of the joints that we want to affect and mobilize with the exercise. You can do this lying down on the ground, which we'll do. You can do it sitting up against a wall or leaning up against a wall, however you feel is best for you to do this. What we want to get you to do is we want to get you to take the ball, press it into your neck, and then lie down onto your back. And then again, it's on the bump in the middle. So for me, I'm going to let it roll off to the right-hand side a little bit. I want to take note of how this ball feels, how it feels like it's sinking in. Does it feel restricted? Does it feel dense? Does it feel tender? And then I want to compare it to the exact same spot on the other side. And what you'll find is one side will feel a little bit more restricted, a little bit tender potentially than the other side. One side won't sink in as easily as the other side. That's the side that we want to let you press the ball into. So even if you find that one knuckle or one hand tends to crack a lot more, we're not necessarily looking at the same side. We're just more interested in the level. So if it's your right hand that consistently cracks, maybe more so than your left hand, but you feel like most of the restricted tissue is in the left-hand side of your neck, that's the area that we need you to free up. Because remember, your body doesn't necessarily care as much about left and rights as we do. It's all part of the same neck. So if one side's restricted, you can affect everything above and below, left and right of that, up and down from that. So we need to make sure we're not missing the roots underlying restriction that might be there for you. And what we want to get you to do with the ball is, as I said briefly before, we don't want you to roll around on the ball. We just want you to find a spot that feels a bit stiff and then just let the ball press in. So for me on this left-hand side, this feels a little bit more restricted than the right-hand side. So this is where I would need to press. Once I've been here for about a minute or two, however long I feel I need to be here for, I then want to take the ball and move it up a little bit or down a little bit, just to try and find where the next area of that restriction is. And then I want to consistently let the ball press in there to make some genuine change. Now, what I always recommend that my patients do, because I never want people to feel like you have to trust what I say, we need to prove it, we need tangible results so that you feel you're doing the right thing. So because we want to use the ball to free up your neck, to hopefully influence what's going on in your hands, it's great to do a test and a retest before and afterwards to see what you've actually done. So what I would recommend to anyone doing this ball exercise is take a second just to get a sense of how your neck feels like it's moving. Take note of which side feels a little bit stiffer, which side feels a little bit freer, where you feel a bit stiff, where you feel a bit tight. Take a mental picture of how that feels. Spend 5-10 minutes just systematically working up and down sort of the top 2 or 3 levels of your upper back, the bottom 2 or 3 levels at the base of your neck, looking for those areas that feel a little bit restricted, a little bit tight and stiff. And once you've had enough, then immediately retest your movements again. And if you've made a genuine change to the mobility of your neck, you'll feel a genuine change. You won't have to guess. It'll feel like it's moving better than what it was before. So if we can then keep seeing that neck range of motion improve, the restrictions in those tissues decrease, then we can begin to start looking for some decreases in the need to crack those knuckles. So as I said at the top of the video, I'm interested to read the comments below. I can almost guarantee that I don't think many people would have connected the dots potentially between the neck and the hands and fingers. If you have, fantastic. I'd love to chat. I'd love to know how you got to that point. Because as I said, it's not something that I feel like anyone's talking about at the moment. Even though clinically, in my experiences, there's some really powerful connections there that by removing them, we can see some genuine change. So I hope that was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. Leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new. If it was genuinely groundbreaking for you, if it was interesting, please consider leaving that super thanks donation to keep the channel going. But in the meantime, keep an eye out for the next one, and we'll see you then.